Hey, what's going on YouTube? This is CJ. I want to welcome you guys back to episode 3 of my brand new 120 gallon Reef system. Now, when I first revealed this tank a few weeks ago, a lot of people had a bunch of comments about the canopy. You know, it's too low, it's hiding too much of the glass. What are you going to do about it? Are you going to use it or not? Well, the time has finally come for me to reveal my plans to you guys. And in a nutshell, the canopy will not be on the tank per se. Now, over my last few years in the hobby, I've seen a bunch of different displays where the canopy is basically just floating over the tank, and I always found that really interesting and unique. But the problem was, this was a handmade canopy that came with the tank, roughly 70 pounds or so. So I had to figure out, how can I mount this on the wall without chaos, destruction, and maybe even worse, breaking my tank. So brainstorming began, and this is just a rough idea of what I came up with. Now, when it comes to all the equipment I used, all of it pretty much came from my local Home Depot and Lowe's. It boiled down to, some drawer sliders for adjusting the lighting, some hinges, heavy duty chain, 1x3 backer boards, and some long 2.5 inch screws to make sure I can hit the studs. So by no means a professional with this, but I definitely feel like I accomplished what I wanted. So let's go ahead and get to this build. Now, before we get going too far, let me make sure I put this out there. This is by no means an how-to video on how to float your canopy. I definitely learned as I went, and whatever I did in this video may or may not work for you. So proceed with caution, do your research, and make sure you're safe when you try this. So first things first, mounting the lighting into the canopy. Of course, I could have just drilled and, mounted them permanently, but I figured there's no way to predict the right kind of spread or the location of the lighting without it being over the tank and without, rock work and water. You never can predict it. So I wanted a way to where I can adjust the lighting while it was on the tank, and no better way I can think of than drawer sliders. There's, a few different sliders you could have purchased, but these are your basic $3.99 10-inch drawer sliders. And to my delight, and to my luck, I guess, the screws lined up perfectly with the existing screws on the Ocean Revive. So this install was easy as cake. So now we get to the fun part. And I say that because this was a lot more difficult than I thought it would be. Lining up the drawer sliders with the wooden rails and the canopy. Now the tough part was figuring out the perfect width between the lighting rails. And trust me guys, I thought I had it measured just right, but I was off by 1/4 of an inch, and that pretty much caused me to tear down everything and start over. Not to mention, when I tried to add the lighting, I come to find out that the railing was too close to the center, so I had to move those too. So it's a lot of trial and error, but eventually I got it done. Now I did end up adding the center brace later. It kind of serves as two main purposes for me. The first being extra support. It helps keep the rails together, make sure there's no chance of bowing or spreading. That'll allow anything to fall off track. And the second reason, it serves as a stopper. As you can tell, the lights only move so far before they hit it, which also will prevent me from, adjusting the lights too much and letting them fall in the tank. And the good news is, that rail is just held by 2 screws. It can be easily removed, and I can easily remove the lights, later down the road if I have to. Now, having full access to the tank was definitely very important for me for later down the road. And my thought was this, if a 70 or 80 pound door can be held by hinges, why couldn't it work on this canopy? So I decided to go ahead, pre-drill some holes, attach these hinges, and we're gonna roll with it. So now the number one question, how in the hell am I gonna support this thing on the wall? As heavy as it is, I had major concerns with it either ripping the wall out, falling, destroying my tank, or even worse, falling and hurting one of my kids. So the plan was simple, use a 1x3 backboard, mark all the studs on the wall, drill pallet holes for every hinge, and use nothing less than 2.5 inch screws to hit everything. And by everything, I'm referring to the backboard, the inch of drywall, and the studs available in the area. Ended up being roughly 20 or so screws, and I figured, if this didn't hold it, nothing else would. So now that all the, the measuring, drilling, and cutting is complete, it's time to address how things look. First thing I had to handle was this chain. Unfortunately, the heavy duty chain I wanted did not come in black. So, a can of spray paint and a nice warm afternoon definitely got the job done for me. The plan is to make sure it doesn't stick out like a sore thumb, and I would say this is mission accomplished. So the next 2 missions to complete, we're painting the backboard black and also painting the bottom of the sump again. Removing the sump from the stand, I scraped off a lot of the paint and it was an eyesore to me. So what better time to fix it than right now? But overall, pretty happy with how it looked. And it came out the same glossy black paint color as my Canopy, and it should blend in well. So everything's dry, pallet holes have been drilled, and Judgment Day is finally upon us. This is the day that, I was looking forward to and also dreading at the same time. But what better way to make myself feel a little better than a nice test on the chain? I tugged on this with half of my weight just to see how it will react. The thing didn't budge, so let's move on to the next part of the build. So it's finally on the wall. And to say this wasn't easy would be an understatement if you guys couldn't tell by the sweat. But without the help of the wife and these chains actually holding the canopy in place, never would have been able to do this on my own. It probably would have been a 2 or 3 man job. But drilling pallet holes and doing everything I could to make it as easy and as secure as possible was the plan. I also bolted these to the front of the canopy. That's not screwed in, and it's also bolted into the wall as well. So as far as the security and safety standpoint, I think I've done everything I can to cover it. But the best way to find out is to test my hinges. And as you can tell, I'm getting a little mini workout in. Everything's holding secure. Everything's all good. So let's put the tank under it and reap the rewards. Now, during the planning process, I had to keep a few different things in mind. The first one, leaving enough room in the canopy for the lights to, breathe and not mount them right on the top of it. And the second, making sure I left enough room for me to access the tank with the canopy. And the third, making sure I mounted the canopy lights high enough to give me the spread I needed for this 24-inch wide tank. So, my estimate was anywhere between 14 and 17 inches would be good. And when I measure the lights out, I would say they were roughly 17 to 18 inches off the water and roughly 39 to 40 inches from the bottom of the tank. So that's what I'm looking at as far as spread, and that's what I'm looking at as far as the depth I'm gonna have to light this tank. So I would say mission accomplished. Well aware of what these lights are capable of, and have no doubt they'll get the job done. Now I know some of you all may be wondering, what's up with the drawer sliders? Are they working? Did it work out? Let's put them to the test. And hopefully as you guys watch the light spread change, you fully understand the value of being able to adjust your lighting. Once I put the scape in here, it wouldn't matter if I put 1 Allen or 2 Allens or, where I put the scape. I can always adjust my lighting to light it the perfect way. And for those that are curious about this lighting itself, these are the Ocean Revive T247 LEDs. I did a full review of these on my JBJ last year. I'll put a link in the video description down below. Hopefully you guys, if you have questions, you can check them out. But I'll definitely cover my lighting in more detail in a future vid. Whenever we get water in the tank and everything established. So let's keep it moving. My limited experience in the hobby and zero experience dealing with canopies and woodwork, really happy with how this project turned out. The planning and execution, couldn't have asked for anything better. But with that being said, still have a few things to clean up. I overestimated the chain length, so got an extra foot of chain I need to cut off the canopy. Got to go through and do some repainting of the nails and screws just to make sure that nothing sticks out. And last but not least, wire management. I got to find an efficient way to hide the lighting cords. So have a few ideas to work that out, but I'll update you on that on another vid. So other than that, I think it's a good stopping point, guys. So hey, hope you enjoyed it. And as always, you guys like, comment, subscribe. You guys do what y'all do. Y'all be easy. Happy reefing.